What up, folks? This is Pop Culture, I'm Alex Pop, and this is my response to the two released trailers for the new upcoming movie, I'm Not Ashamed, from the Christian film distributor Flix. And I've certainly got some things to say. Now, you may have clicked on this video expecting an angry rant, but instead, I'll be taking more of an analytical approach, but I will tell you right away that I have extremely mixed feelings about what I'm Not Ashamed is going to be bringing to the screen. The trailers for this movie are getting smashed like a bug. People have been calling it out for being just a cheap piece of propaganda. This is a typical reaction you would come to expect with a Christian film, but with this movie, I don't entirely blame them. I'm Not Ashamed is a biopic of Rachel Joy Scott, a student who attended Columbine High School. From what we see in the trailers, the movie chronicles her spiritual walk with God and her motivations to help others who are down in the dumps. It all leads to the Columbine Massacre of 1999, where Rachel was the first to have her life taken by the shooters Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. Allegedly, upon her death, Eric asked her, "Do you believe in God?" To which she replied, "You know that I do." Okay, so the movie is just telling the story of the life of a real person. Nothing wrong with that, right? Well, there are a few problems in this case. What worries me the most is that the movie will just make it about Rachel's spiritual life and nothing else, which becomes most evident by the line that both the trailers end with.
Jesus gave his life for me, and I'll give my life to him.
Yeah, when a trailer ends with a proclamation like that, it usually means it's the main theme of the movie. It probably wouldn't matter so much if it just showed how she lived her faith and then the movie ended with a title card that told us how she died and what she's remembered for. But Rachel's death was just a pinpoint in the Columbine Massacre, which was a national tragedy and a defining event in America. So if they're going to show any part of the event on screen, which they will, the effects that it had on this country have to not just be acknowledged but conveyed. And in its true essence, the Columbine Massacre was not an attack on Christianity. Granted, Dylan and Eric did make it clear in their basement tapes that they hated Christianity, and yes, they may have gone after Rachel Scott for her faith, and Cassie Bernal when they heard her praying underneath the table. That much may be true, but that wasn't the extent of it. They also targeted minority students and athletes who favored Caps. Most of the people there they just shot because they could. Dylan and Eric's motivations to commit the massacre aren't 100% clear, but it becomes apparent that Eric was psychopathic, Dylan was vengeful, and after being bullied in school, they had to kill others along with themselves. Now, we don't know yet if Rachel's death is the only part of the massacre we're going to see in the movie, but it's all we see in the trailer along with some statements that she makes about living and dying for Christ. This has led to speculations that the movie is exploiting a tragedy for the sake of preaching Christianity. That would be offensive, and quite frankly, I love my faith too much to see it be misrepresented that way. Putting that aside, it just disappoints me that the movie is being centered around only one of the students who died. I imagine there will be acknowledgments for the other victims at the end of the movie, but it still makes it feel like the filmmakers are favoring Rachel over the others. I don't know if anyone else who was caught up in the shooting is even in the movie, other than Richard Castaldo, the young man who was having lunch with her when the massacre started. I would have rather seen a movie that showed all of the lives that were cut short that day, similar to how the film United 93 paid tribute to all of the passengers who were on board Flight 93 on September 11th. It wasn't just told from the point of view of Todd Beamer and how he lived for Jesus prior to 9/11, but it did still respect who he was by showing him reciting the Lord's Prayer and shouting his catchphrase, "Let's roll," when he and the other passengers charged toward the terrorists. The last negative thing I have to say about the movie right now is the title. It does come from one of Rachel's journal entries, which obviously refers to Romans 1:16, but it just adds to the propaganda-y feel of the marketing. I'll be getting back to that in a moment. Now, all this being said, here's where I'm hopeful. The movie is directed by Brian Boff, who in 2010 directed To Save a Life, which in my opinion is the best faith-based movie we've ever gotten. The reason is because the point of the movie goes well beyond just the main character's conversion of the Christian faith. It's a risk-taking film that takes an edgy approach to a plethora of real-life issues, such as teen suicide, depression, school cliques, and even hypocrisy in the church, a subject that most Christian filmmakers don't seem to have the guts to address. So if I was asked if there was a Christian director who could make a film about Columbine, I would vouch for Brian Boff, because I think he's capable of embracing the spiritual elements of the story without making into a heavy-handed sermon, and some of the aforementioned issues that he handled well in To Save a Life are relevant to Columbine. It's also conceivable that the spiritual elements are only being made front and center in the film's marketing to appeal to the studio's general religious audience, but the movie itself is less about those elements, similar to last year's Captive, also one of the better faith-based movies in recent memory. One of the other things people seem to be speculating is that Eric and Dylan will be portrayed as nothing more than over-the-top villain caricatures with no humanity to them, or else just scowling atheists, which Flix has made a habit of writing. However, I'm not too worried about this. For one, I will note that during the shooting, they really did make sarcastic remarks that you might hear from villains in a B-movie. But outside of that, we do get a brief hint in the trailers at what they were going through when we see them reacting negatively to other bullying going on in the school. So I'm relatively confident that we'll see more of what they were feeling that led to their decision to shoot up Columbine. And finally, there is something that should be noted about Rachel Scott, and that is that she has left a legacy behind. She was posthumously awarded the 2001 National Kindness Award by the Acts of Kindness Association, and her father leads an organization called Rachel's Challenge to carry on her ideals. It's a non-profit, non-political, and non-religious organization designed to prevent school violence, bullying, and teen suicide. The Columbine massacre sparked great concern for such issues, and Rachel was clearly concerned about them too. So what Rachel's Challenge does is tour schools worldwide using footage of the shooting and its aftermath combined with Rachel's journal entries, such as this quote from her in the trailers.
I have this theory that if one person can go out of their way to show compassion, it could start a chain reaction.
That's a really simple idea, but in all fairness, kindness is a simple thing, and just a random expression of it really could go a long way, maybe somehow even to prevent another tragedy like Columbine. Knowing that, I could see Rachel being kind of a spokesperson for the event in the movie, so maybe having her as the main character won't be such a bad thing. Though I still hope that at least some of the other victims are represented. So in the end, I'm really uncertain of what to expect from I'm Not Ashamed. I'm sure a lot of people think they know what to expect, but as for me, I'm going to give the movie the benefit of the doubt. I believe there is potential, but it could very easily be squandered. I am anxious to see how it turns out, whether it's going to be a pleasant surprise or just as bad as everyone thinks it will be. So let me know what you think of the trailers in the comments below, and whether or not you plan on seeing the movie. I'll be looking forward to giving it the best and most unbiased review I can give it when it hits theaters on October 21st. That's a wrap for now. This is Pop Culture. I'm Alex Pop. Catch you later.